Axons Unleashed.
Hey, morning, ladies and gents. Welcome back to Axons Unleashed. My name's Robbie. I'm here with Dane and the lovely Tamara, also known as my wife.
Nice.
That's not a bad way to start.
No, good start.
I didn't get that
Thanks.
adjective.
No.
The lovely Dane.
Mate, imagine if I fucking said that.
I'll be out of here.
And he drops an F-bomb within, 20 seconds?
Oh, yeah. So for those listening for the first time, we're pretty raw and real here. Hey, we're on a bit of a journey at the moment. So one of the previous podcasts that you would have listened to was all about my military career. So we had so much sort of feedback there after doing podcast seasons 1 and 2. People were like, oh, I loved hearing the backstory. I loved hearing the behind the scenes. I loved like knowing, that deeper level stuff about you guys. So
I think it was really interesting for me as well, because even though we're married, we know most things about each other. It's like the time, you call it BT,
in
before
the year,
Tammy.
the year BT.
And it's interesting to hear that side of things, and just bouncing off the guys as well about their experience. I absolutely laughed my ass off at Dane's sort of recruit school.
My little shortcuts.
Yes.
My shortcuts that didn't become a shortcut.
Sleeping under the bed, fucking putting your cams on over the top of your PT rig. Everyone listening will be like, oh, that's gold. I should have thought of that. If you did
sleep
do
on
it.
the carpet for three months. How you do. Oh, I'm actually super keen to hear a lot of it, because my first interaction, I think, with Robbie, I was just like, because Jess goes, what are they like? I'm like, he was definitely in the army. He oozes. He oozes. So I'm really looking forward to it.
When Robbie did his transition seminar, they said to him, "Oh, maybe you tell what."
Yeah,
they
they're like,
said.
all right. So everyone stand up if you've done 5 years. Keep standing up if you did more than 10 years. Keep standing up if you did more than 15 years. Keep standing up if you did more than 20 years. Keep standing up if you did more than 25. And obviously that's when I sat down. He goes, right, because there was no one else. Maybe one or two other people sitting down at that stage. He goes, right, stand up, those last people. A few of us stood up. He goes, you guys, you don't talk the same. You don't walk the same. You don't look the same. You don't act the same as a normal human being. You've been here more than 20 years in the military.
Institutionalized.
Short-shanked.
It's so funny because he came home and he goes, is that true? Do I not walk
With
and
his
talk the
tan
same?
cap.
And I was like,
And my camo shorts on.
oh my God, he used to wear the only camo stuff on the weekends.
Lord.
He's come a long way, let me just say.
And you hear this adjective loved. Like, I loved my time in the military. It was fucking me. I was lean, green, mean fighting machine on the weekends, and and obviously at work and whatever as well. So I guess and you guys are going to now learn more about how I got to that point. So we finished off on the last little bit whereby I had a bit of a junction in my life, and I was going to go and be a PDI. I was at the gym all the time. I was best mates with all the PDIs. One of the PDIs there was living with me, and they were about to run a PDI course here at Holsworthy. And then I got booted off that course because I fucked up by catching, getting back to Amberley late by catching a C-130. And then I got dressed down hard by my boss at the time, who I fucking loved as a bloke, but he was such a hard ass on me. He goes, right, you're not going on the PDI course. You're now cancelled from that. You're going on Exercise Swift Eagle 96. Pack your bags. You're fucking leaving in 3 days' time. And I was devastated.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck you guys. Like, how the fucking dare you do this to me? Like, destructive, bloody bad behaviour there.
So this was the year 96?
1996, Swift Eagle 96. Yeah. Fuck, were you born?
We're in
Yeah, I was in
I was in year 6.
Yeah, you were in year 6.
Both of us.
Oh, true.
How do you spell army? It's funny when you say it, because I was thinking about that story that you said sort of last time, missing the Herc. And I was thinking about so I went and did a course down in Richmond, right? There's 2 C-17s parked out the front, and I ring up my CO. I go, hey, I'm going to jump on that. I'm not going to go get the plane out of the airport to come back off the course. He's like, yeah, sweet. Jump on that. I'll see you later on this afternoon. So I just choose one. One's going to Amberley. The other one's going to Perth. Which one did I get on? The Perth one. Oh. As we're flying along, I'm like, fuck, we must be there by now. I went and talked to the loadie, and he's like, mate, we're going to Perth. Hopefully you got some clean clothes.
We're going to
Off the piers. So I get there, obviously. My CEO's like, where are you? I'm like, you'll never guess. You'll never guess.
Did you get the shit for that?
What rank were you then?
I was a flight lead.
Flight 10. Oh, yeah, fuck, you're fine. Yeah. Imagine doing it as a fucking corporal.
Where's my allowances?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Choose one.
Oh,
choose
God.
one.
Choose
Hey,
one.
but you know what? I got to a point where I loved being a junior NCO. You know, and I guess, Dane, this is why I love having you here on these calls. It's something very, very rare to be able to share stories about joining as a digger and getting out as an officer. You know, it's at the end of the day, you know, when you have both experiences, it's hard to sort of pass on there. And, you know, if the legend himself, Dan, was here, he'd be like, and you fucking still don't know what it's like to be a junior NCO. Yes, mate, you're a corporal at fucking Duntroon, but you don't really know what it's like to be a junior NCO. But tell us, how much did you love being a junior NCO? You know, when you make that transition from being one of the boys and mates with everyone to go, right, you're now, you know, one of the junior leaders, and if someone's fucked up, you need to smack them over the knuckles and sort it out. Yeah,
so I guess, like, I loved being enlisted. I did. And I think it was a good change for me. Like, I've said it to Robbie all the time, like, my mate said to me, you know, man, before I went off to OTS, he goes, because I'm like, hey, man,
Officer training school.
Officer training school. Sorry, everyone. But I'm gonna nick off and do this. And he goes, you know, dude, at the moment, you're one of many. So you always get away with all this stuff. He goes, but when you come back, you're going to be one of one. You're going to hold a particular position at the squadron. And being a junior officer, you're not going to have a bunch of other ones where you just interchange. So you can't just go MIA and do all this shit. And I was like, oh, that's fucking true.
Make sure you're on the right plane.
Yeah, because when you're an ABTEC, there's 70 of us. People can come and go, oh, we need to go fix that IFCM, you know, out on the aircraft. And they'll be like, oh, we'll just find an ABTEC and there's thousands. But when they're like, we need to find the OPSO, where the fuck is he gone? Get him on the phone. So I was like, oh, yeah, my early marks are numbered. But I really enjoyed it. But one of the sort of things when I was down at Officer Training School, you'd sort of have this meeting at the end where they talk about, especially when you're a commissioning airman, because you're just different. You can always tell, and I always say to Robbie, you always tell a mixed blood. Like, you can tell Dan just went straight in as an officer, right? Like, the way sort of, well, we need to do this. Who's going to do it? You know? I'm like, you're missing corporals, mate. That's what you need. But when I was down there, you go and do this meeting, and they're like, the biggest concern we have with you when you go back into that environment is separating yourself from that, because you're not going to be one of the boys anymore. You're going to be the leader at the squadron, and when they're stepping out of line, you need to have those hard conversations. So I guess being prepped down there for that, like every single person, like, you know, the direct entries, they're not prepping them because they come in and they're already like, oh, I'm educated. They always think they're always elevated a little bit, but when you have commissioning airmen, it's like you learn so much from your senior NCOs.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck, more than anyone can ever imagine. And I think I spoke about ages ago when I had a really great warrant officer when I came back into that realm. But I loved it, man. I loved it. I really did, because finally I could sort of take ownership of stuff. And I thought, like, all those little nuances that don't sort of get through, like, I'm speaking for the lads. Like, I can come into meetings and say, hey, we need X, Y, and Z to get this done. So I found myself, like, being that conduit, but I relished it, mate.
I'll certainly, during the next podcast, I'll talk about my transition into being an officer. But if, in short, I found myself part of the decision-making process, not just the decision doing process. Yeah. So it was really, really cool. But yeah, being a junior NCO is like a bit of a, it's a trial period for that, you know, really. So, you know, I loved being a junior NCO. It was fucking awesome. Like, that's when I really, really started to love the Army a lot.
Yep.
You know, I was really, really fortunate to be given like plenty of responsibility, and certainly one of those highest responsibilities was then chosen to go down to Kapuka. So you guys remember the story I told? I was on the phone crying to my mum as a young 17-year-old back in 1990, fucking SLR and greens, literally, hating my time at Kapuka. But then I got a fucking big kick up the arse and eventually, you know, got it sorted out, and I loved being there.
Yep.
So in December 98, I got posted, so I finished jumping with 3-hour RNA battery, 96, 97, 98. As an FO act there, and then sort of calling in all the joint fires and mortars and aircraft, et cetera, et cetera. It was a really cool job, like fucking playing a video game every day, really, just going to Singleton, going to Pucko, going to higher range and just bombing up shit and blowing up shit with, you know, guns, aircraft, mortars, helicopters, et cetera. But then I got chosen to go down to Kapuka, and then I went and did my recruit instructor training course. And I thought, this is going to be great. Like, I remember what it was like to be a 17-year-old. Those fuckers just yelled at me for like fucking 3 months at a time. The course had been reduced. It was only 6 weeks now. So we had to cram everything into 6 weeks.
What was it originally?
3 months.
Oh.
And it's waxed and waned in my understanding over the last 20 years. I think it's actually back to 3 months again now.
Right.
But they got their phones on them the whole time now. There's no fucking mobile phones back then, even when I was back when there was an instructor in like 98. Well, you might have had a big fucking brick phone that you like fucking, you know, Sherlock Holmes bloody sort of shit.
The last I heard was on Sundays they get their phones.
We got it you had 30 minutes of phone a week.
Yeah.
And they locked it up in this thing, whereas now they have them all the time, apparently.
Yeah. I remember having the ring, you know, back in the old day, like 0011. I would wish to make a reverse charge phone call. Like, I didn't have any fucking money back. This was a recruit.
Did your mum always accept?
She's like,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. But, you know, going down to Kapooka to do my recruit instructor development course was fucking unlock phone. There you go. It's me, I promise. I had to just make some notes last night because I'm like, fucking don't forget about this and don't forget about this, and because there's fucking fair few things I did right.
And it was a while ago.
And it was correct. It was. So we're talking. This is now 1999. When I did my first platoon in January 1999, I was just yelling for 3 days straight. Get your arm up, press it into the wrist, get over here, boom, 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 boom. And then after day 3, I couldn't fucking talk. Like I lost my voice, and I'm like, all right,
that'll teach you.
I need to find a better way that I can motivate, inspire, and get these young recruits to do shit and not fucking lose my voice in the meantime. So you certainly do moderate the way that you speak to people, and you don't yelling at people all the time is not the best way of getting them sort of to do their job. But you know, there's recruits now that I put through Kapooka, many years ago, that are on my Facebook now, and we're mates, and they're all out. It's like, you know, it's really, really cool to know that people that I fucking put through the ringer, you know, and I used to mentor the fuck out of them. I'm like, you know, I guess I used to do to them what wasn't done for me. Just fucking do it. Don't ask any questions. And I used to hate that. I'm like, no. If you give people a reason why and explain the importance and the you know, just the effort that they need to put towards it, you'll find that they're on board so much more.
And that's such a lesson for leadership in any area. Yeah. So you think about that as managers, as business owners, as leaders in anywhere, really. If you are passing on information to the team, if you pass on why that's such a big importance and how the ripple effect of that affects other areas of the business. For instance, perhaps one of our coaches writing notes in our CRM that can pass on down the track to other people that are picking up that client. And it could be the smallest amount of detail, but it could help them later on. And it's that lack of information, lack of passing it on that has such a ripple effect. But as soon as people know, okay, this is going to cause effect later on, or this is going to have that ripple effect, people make more of an effort and go, oh, got it.
Yeah, they do.
It's
sure.
Probably a credit to you too, Robbie. Like, you always get people who go back into an instructor role and they've gone through, 15 years earlier, and they try and replicate what happened then, where they're just like blasting people and so on and so forth. So sort of identifying, and you guys always say it, which I like, we're not the keeper of all the bright ideas. Speak up. And they have a thing like in the RAF, they talk about bottom-up innovation. Like they want people to talk up, throw up
Same
ideas.
Same as Qantas.
Yeah, so that people can sit there and go, oh, let's analyse these. Is this good or this is bad? Because you don't just going down range all the time.
Top-down direction. We used to call it bottom-up refinement.
Yeah.
Refinement of the direction sort of thing, but certainly the innovation.
Innovations of
yeah, it is. Yeah,
here we are, diverting.
Getting fancy.
But I loved it down at Kapooka. Won a footy grand final down there. Remind me of like country footy back in Port Pirie. Come 12:30, the streets are dead. Everyone's at the oval. Cars parked around, tooting on the horn, bloody running out.
You love that.
It was really really good. I absolutely loved it. Loved it there. It was an all core environment as well. So in the army, I just went to artillery, right? And as a young guy, I was just fucking with the majors, the captains, the sergeants, the warrant officers, the bombardiers. So I went there as a bombardier, which is pretty cool. Yep. Remember that story I told when that other guy was like, I wonder what corps I'm going to go to. I'm like, my name's Bombardier Kraut. This is what I'm going. I'm like, fucking, that's a cool sounding name. I'm going to go do that. Well, guess what? Fucking fast forward like 11 years later, I was back there as Bombardier Turner. So
were you always in Sydney prior to this, then going back to Wagga?
Just to Sydney, yeah. Did 8.5 years in Sydney.
How did you find, like, I know from my experience, like I was up the Gold Coast, right? And I was like, Wagga, where the fuck is that? And I looked it up and I was like, oh man, and then I had to do tech training there. So I was there for 2 years. But it was funny, when I came back, I remember I came back for Christmas, right? So drove up, had the 3 weeks stand down, up here milling about. And I remember getting incredibly frustrated with the traffic. Just going like, oh man, Gold Coast is so traffic. Busy. And then I'm like, I can't wait to get back down to Wagga. I was like, what am I saying right now? Like, it takes you 2 minutes to get to the other side.
Whereas I think Gold Coast traffic's amazing because I've grown up in Sydney.
Sydney, yeah. Yeah, shocking. I used to have this little story like at the front of Wagga. It used to say, welcome to Wagga, population 56,000, whatever, just coming on the bloody highway. I'm sure it's more than that now. But what I've also should have said is like, and turn your clock back 20 years. You know, as it is with all small country towns, I suppose. You know, when I say small country town, it's still rather large, but it's fucking, it ain't Sydney and it ain't Gold Coast.
I think it's come a long way since you were there too.
Yeah, no doubt. But, you know, I had, for instance, I guess when you're used to that rigid, very straight line command structure, my platoon commander was medical corps. My platoon sergeant was engineer corps. I had another engineer as a fellow recruit instructor, an ordnance guy, an infantry guy, and me. So it was a bit of a mixed bag there as far as that goes. But it was really cool. Same. I've got, you know, young corporals and other bombardiers that I was at Kapuka with back in the day. They're all now like fucking tier 2, tier 3 RSMs. Yep. Well, not they all. There's probably 3 or 4 that are still in. You know, but they were, you know...
It would have been a good learning environment for them though, right? Having such a vast amount of leadership there from different sort of areas in the army.
Yeah, and I've got probably 3 or 4 clients over the last couple of years that have now bounced in and out of Wagga, and they're like, oh, it looks like I'm going to get out of bloody... I'm going to Kapuka next year. I'm like, bro, you're going to fucking love it. You know, and embrace the fact that you can now talk to other people in other corps and get to know what the wider army does. Because as you go up the ranks and be a senior NCO, you're going to need to know. You can't just be in that bloody, you know, that silo of your specific corps or trade. You got to understand what the bigger picture is.
Because they are training, I think people identify with that. They're like, I don't want to go back down there because it was like 30 centimetre folds and all this shit stuff they had to do. So they just like, I just couldn't. But when they go back and they're in a different realm like Robbie did, like being able to put an impact and make changes would have been super rewarding.
Wasn't it funny a couple of months ago, Robbie, when we were down in Sydney at the airport, we ran into a client who's an instructor.
Yeah,
and
young BJ.
Yeah, and
I'm talking to him and Chloe tonight.
He was waiting for a bunch of recruits to turn up, and we were chatting away, and then suddenly there was a young guy turned up with his hat on backwards, and he flipped around and said, "Get your hat off!"
Yeah.
And I even went, "Oh God!" Like the tension there. And then as they marched past, as we were waiting for the taxi, they're walking past with their suitcases, and I said, "Oh my God, you can feel the tension in the air. They are shitting themselves." And even you said, "Oh God, I can even feel that. I know what they're in for." And
I remember what it was like when I was them, and I remember what it was like when I was one of the bombardiers who used to go and pick them up from the airport as well. So,
and he was way in front of them. He's like, "Hurry up,
let's go, move it."
Hurry up, but don't run. I just remember hearing that all the time. So when you do, you go in and you sort of swear in. We go to the Brisbane airport. So like, because I went through DFR down at Coolangatta. So I go up there, swear in, everyone's there, and it's fucking photos all around, and everyone's really proud. Go to the airport, and they have this Rafi Taishu who works at the DFR in Brisbane. Takes you up there, make sure everyone gets on the plane. So we go up there, and I'm like sort of talking to her. I'm like, she goes, well, you're a bit older, mate. Just remember, just keep your head down, you know, and just roll the punches, because just remember, this is just one step in your whole career in the Air Force. So don't let this define what you think it's all about. And then some dude had his glasses on his head, and then he was late for the plane. He was one of the guys enlisting, and she said to me, she goes, "Don't worry, mate. He'll take all the heat when you get down there." So we get down there, we're all getting our fucking bags, and we're all walking out, get in a line, and then I hear this, "And get your bloody sunnies off your head." And then I looked over, and that's old mate. Oh, God. Like, yes, thank God this guy's on my course.
Yeah, well, when we saw the guys walking past, that guy had quickly removed his hat. We were like, the hat's gone.
But it was good, you know, seeing BJ, because he was one of the guys like, I've got to go to Kapuka next year. I'm like, fuck, you're going to love it. And then, you know, fast forward 6 months and we've seen him. He's like, I said, how you going, man? He goes, it's the best. I love it. I said, yeah, I thought you would. Back then we used to have like drill wing, field wing, and weapons wing. So I got allocated after I did my recruit instructor training course. So I got allocated as a drill corporal, you know, effectively drill instructor. So highest levels of dress and bearing, you know, fucking ironing and starching the fuck out of my cams all the time. Spit polished bloody black boots every day, black belt, brass, everything. Like, and I love that sort of you know, that true idea of, you know, being a drill instructor somewhere. So it was good. So by the time I did my sub one for sergeant at the end of the year, where they do a lot of drill, a lot of colour drill and flag drill and everything, fuck, it was a breeze. I was like, I knew the drill patter down pat. I knew the sequence of how to give a lesson. I remember we had this one chick in my section. She was a pay clerk, a pay corporal, who fucking went through Kapuka 12 years ago and never even gone out on parade to have her name called since then. And now here she was on a sub one for sergeant, fucking trying to give a drill lesson. I gave her heaps of. I gave her a lot of assistance actually. I got her through that course because she would not have fucking done it otherwise.
It's so that forms part of your. Is it PMAT? Do they call it PMAT in the army? Like your promotional.
Please explain. Yeah, Pauline. What the fuck does PMAT mean?
What's that mean?
It's when you're going through, like, make it your. You need to go do certain courses at your rank before you're eligible then to promote. It was called PME. Yeah,
Promotion
PME,
course?
PMET, whatever.
Professional military
Education.
education training.
Yeah.
I know what that stands for, but that's not what we refer to in the
okay,
military.
right.
It's just
Right.
It's called fucking make
Didn't you just
make
go on
yourself
promotion
better.
courses?
Yeah, promotion courses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's a army training continuum and an officer training continuum. Yeah, same sort of thing. But it was good. I knew I was sort of on my way to being a senior NCO. I was only my 4th year as a junior NCO, and eventually I'm like, right, cool. I knew I was going to get promoted to sergeant and then head on up to Townsville.
Yep.
So it was good. I really loved my time down in Wagga, and certainly getting up to Townsville. I marched into a unit then. It was called Four-Field Regiment, and it is known as the most regimented, hard-nosed, fucking tip of the spear. We're 3 brigade. We've got 1 RER. We've got 3 RER up here. Like we're always the first to go. Light infantry sort of stuff. So it was very, very easy for me to be walking around there and go, "Oi, get your bends out of your elbows. Arms up the waist belt height. Force it back to the rear." Like it was good. Like people were like, "Who is this motherfucker?" I'm like, "Oh, that's the new Sergeant Turner. He just finished being a real drill instructor down at Kapuka." So it was good though. I mean, what about you, mate? What's your sort of after you only did the one set of postings, didn't you? So you're out at Amberley.
I was an Amberley connoisseur.
Yeah.
in the end. And I think I kept very quiet when I first started Axon because the boys were always, especially like, I got Dan and Sim obviously talking about the rigmarole of their posting. And they're like, Adelaide, and I was at Townsville and Darwin, I'm Mr. NT and all sort of shit. And I was like, oh, yeah. Well, I was like successfully negating that.
Amberley.
I was just enlisted Wagga, and then I was straight up to Amberley, got a back-to-back posting there. Then I commissioned. So I was down to officer training school, splattering of courses, obviously a bunch of exercises and trips and stuff in between. Got reposted back up to Amberley, and then I got a lateral posting again. And I remember speaking to the streamer, and I was like, mate, I'm going to try and go for another year. I said, oh, mate, I'll be fucking 15 years and I've never left the base. And then he's like reading it, and he's like, so you've commissioned? And he goes back, he goes, oh, so commissioning. And he goes, mate, you did 6 years fucking there before you even commissioned. And I was like, yeah, so do you reckon I'll get another posting? He's like, no way. He goes, you're gone. You are gone. I'm like, you're gone? I'm gone. No.
Yeah, I was going to say, so if you hadn't have found Axon and you were up for posting at the end of that year.
They would have posted me.
And then
where were you,
that would have been a
talking?
fork in the road for you, yeah?
Canberra, yeah.
All
roads lead to Canberra.
Yes.
And they're like, you're
Robbie loved Canberra. I'm not a huge fan, but I guess I only would visit on weekends, and it's very
It's not a bad spot. It's more just the family
on
dynamic of being away. So in stepped you guys and remedied all that, which was good.
We'll talk about our Canberra trip down the track.
Sure. No good in winter. No good.
Fuck no. Yeah, freezing. So rocked up to Townsville. This was had the year 2000, really. So I was up there.
The millennial.
Went to.
The
I was
Olympics.
in. Yeah, the Olympics as well. But Townsville was a long way from Sydney. So you really care about the Olympics. It's too far away. I spent the millennial. Spent New Year's Eve with a good mate of mine up at the wool shed in Cairns, actually. So I knew I was going up to the Townsville. He goes, I'll fly up there, dancing on the tables and bloody yeah. So we saw the 2000 sort of come up there, and lucky all the lights still worked, and my watch didn't explode, etc.
Yeah, the Y2K bug.
Y2K bug. But yeah, I was living in the sergeant's mess lines because I was just bloody single dingle back then. So it was just sort of good to live in the old these are the old bloody
The what? Sons.
The sergeant's mess lines.
The lines.
I thought you said Sons and Lions. I'm like, are we talking about AFL?
Sorry, I just went.
I like the single dingle.
Yeah, sergeant's mess lines. Yeah, mate, I was but it was good. Mess life's great. You just fucking get out, walk out of your room, go down the end there. The cooks are there. They'll make you bloody breakfast, lunch, dinner. Everything's included. Sit down, watch the bloody TV. It was really, really cool. So it's sort of
they've lost their allure. Let's be honest.
That's because it's all combined mess now. But we had our own mess back then.
Yep.
So it was just the Four-Field Regiment. Yeah, it was good. It was good. It's just good to get to know, the warrant officers in a bit more of a relaxed mode. Had a very different relationship with the RSM. The same again, still really good mates with him on Facebook at the moment. It's good to see everyone sort of do their stuff.
Yep.
Killer, if you're listening. So thanks for all your mentoring back in those days, mate. As a young, what was I? I was only. What was that? I was only a 28-year-old senior NCO. So, I've only been in 11 and a bit years. So, still quite young as far as that goes. Yeah, just doing my thing.
Yeah.
And then I went straight up there as a gun sergeant. So, I hadn't been on the gun line. Since I was a Lance Jack in 95. Now here we were 2000. But yeah, I guess it was sort of good to sort of step back into that gunline stuff. Do you remember that gunline sergeant story I was saying last week? He was like just fucking militant. Just do stuff, be excellent at your job, just, be rah, rah, rah. So it was really good to sort of step back into the realm, and now have my own bombardier, had my own Lance bombardier and 5 other guys on the gun. So it was just, organised chaos, I suppose.
Loved it.
That sort of, that competition on the gun line, as soon as you get that move to, that word to move or the order to move to the next position, you pack everything down and bloody get back on the truck and then get out of there, and it's first one on first one off and first one on. So it's a very, very competitive environment, very cutthroat environment, and I loved it. Like, it was just fucking. That's when the army was really oozing out of me. Like, I was loving every bit of it. So it was good, I suppose.
Would you have picked that competitive nature? Jeez.
Oh, where's it come from?
Yeah.
Army oozing out of him.
Couldn't tell.
Still.
Does the RAF have gun ho senior NCOs that they just fucking love their job and love their? I'm sure there are.
Absolutely, mate.
Yeah.
There is. Like, I guess being in a technical workforce that I was in, like, you have ours isn't regimented in there. Like, when you're going through different stages, because you don't want that. You don't want someone, especially when you're fixing aircraft. The last thing you need is someone just taking blind faith in somebody else's decisions, because like. With that Seahawk, right? With that split pin that went down the Navy, like the amount of stuff that came off the back of that, because all the shit that happened when they went out. So I actually used to work with a guy. He works for Boeing. So Boeing is integrated with you when you work there. Like, as Robbie and I sit together upstairs, I could be sitting with a Boeing guy, and we could go out and we could be troubleshooting, we could be doing all this sort of stuff. We had a guy who was an ex-chief petty officer, and he was down there at that time. And like, you should see this guy. Like, you go out to the plane, there's no power applied to the aircraft, and he's going, let's go pull the circuit breakers. I'm like, Dins, what the fuck are you talking about? There's no power. I said, maybe if the lightning strikes, it would get some power. But like, and he goes like, no, mate. Like, he's just so by the book. Like, it was very much, it very much changed. That everyone was very like, you would question and like if anything was wrong. So it was just a different environment. And I liked it because you got in there where before you were, sergeant, flight, like you had to call by rank. You get in there and first thing you do, you walk in and you can be like, hi, Sergeant, I'm AC Roach, I'm coming in from, fucking training, and they'll be like, just call me Rob. And you're like, what?
That would never happen in the army, right?
Not in the regular army. In SOCOM it did a lot, and I will get to that in some of the later episodes.
So this was and it was just that environment, is it? Whereas when you go into ADGs, no. Like the CSG. So I guess like I went into that sort of realm where it wasn't, and then you'd find yourself sometimes, like you'd be down doing your weapons handling test. And you'd fall into it, you'd call like, flight, and they'll be like, it's flight sergeant, because there's an ADG down there, so they're a lot more military. So you have different sort of sections, I guess. Whereas
ADG is like the army version, the air defence guards are the army version of the RAF.
Right.
They're
commonly known as RAF-SAS, isn't it?
RAF-SAS.
The RAF-SAS.
They're not RAF-SAS. They're definitely no SAS.
No, but they're the link. They're the link between air defence guards. Is they got nothing to do with aircraft. They're there to protect the ground around the Air Force, around the airfields.
Yeah, you find there's a lot of like, so we have different FEGs, right? So there's 6
force element groups.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like departments, right?
I'm on it, mate.
Kind of like
I'm on it.
We have at work, right?
Acronym, brevity and clarity. I knew exactly what you
The
meant.
amount of
like
acronyms.
Coaches, property specialists, build support flight. We could pretend they're FEGs, right?
Yeah.
But underneath that combat support group is closely aligned, I guess, with the Army. They do a lot of stuff with the Army. They're almost, we always joke, they're not part of us. They're like Army. We call them the Army Reserve. To them, CSG is the Army Reserve, right? And they're like, oh, fuck off. But they go out and do field, and they do all these things, that just does not happen for the other 5 FEGs, because it's all air power. So surveillance group, combat, heavy airlift, all those other elements that are directly related with that. Whereas, ADGs form part of that CSG element. So I guess for me,
CSG?
Combat support group.
Sorry.
Yeah, and field for those guys is like the McCure.
Yeah.
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 And we're the Shangri-La.
Room service.
But that's good, man. I know that you got some ripper junior NCOs and senior NCOs in the RAF just to keep everything online. But
yeah, they definitely do, and there's a lot of smart people like you find like that. There definitely are, and I guess one thing is like you'll find that especially in that technical workforce, they tend to like, because you do work so closely with contractors, you get a lot of poaching happening. Like being able to retain the better performing personnel is fucking difficult, because if you're Boeing and you're working with 10 Raffies and you're like, man, that guy is worth every fucking penny, you know, he's awesome, then they'll bring, you know, suddenly there's an offer, another 30 grand on top of what they get. They get to stay in location. There's a lot of pluses for people. So you find they kind of go up and out. So I know they're trying to remedy that, but you get some fucking awesome
with
awesome
some
deals.
extra retention benefits and everything in there.
That's
Yeah, you can still go to the same workplace. Don't have to worry about the bloody DVDA hanging over your head, and you can go there and earn more money.
100%.
It's good. Yeah. But mate, I love living up in Townsville. That was sort of my northern posting up there. You got the Strand, you got the Seaview, great bunch of mates. You know, people used to say to me, "Hey, what's Townsville like?" I'm like, "It's fucking good weather for drinking piss." Like, it's great.
It is.
It was obviously hot.
I'm
it's
sure
pretty
you
warm.
said that still in Canberra too, though.
No, fucking. Well, I wasn't drinking red wine back then because I was still quite young, in my late 20s and early 30s. I hadn't started drinking red by then.
He was a soldier, not an officer yet.
But I guess with my FO or forward observer background, as I did for 3 years, 96, 97, 98, I transitioned out of the gun line and moved into what's called the BC's Act, which is the Battery Commander's Assistant. So I was a sergeant looking after the Battery Commander's role there, and he was in charge of all the FOs. And that was sort of that was my realm. So we're talking about joint firepower coordination and sort of external liaison, bigger picture all the time about what's going on. So that was really, really cool. And there was one guy, I can't remember his name. In the lead up to this, I was trying to remember his name. He was the RAP sergeant. He worked down in the where you fucking go get your medical shit sorted. That's the technical term for RAP, your medical shit. What was his fucking name? Anyway, I said, mate, I haven't seen you for ages. He goes, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I've just finished doing my testing for ASWOX.
What's
I
ASWOX?
was like, that's what I said to him. What's ASWOX? He goes, oh, that's when you commission from sergeant to captain. I'm like, the fuck are you talking about? He goes, yeah, there's this new scheme that you can come in. This is like 2001, 2002.
Your antenna's like...
There's this new scheme that can come where you can go. I'm like, so you don't have to go to Duntroon. You don't have to put yourself through. Like, goes, nah, man, fucking, you can go straight from sergeant to captain. I was like, motherfucking, why have I heard this before? Because remember I told that story last time when one of my troop commanders pulled me aside when I was a digger, and he's like, man, you should go to fucking Duntroon. Like, you're kicking ass here. I'm like, fuck that. I don't want to become an officer. I fucking love being a fucking enlisted guy. I love being a soldier. I don't want to fucking be one of you.
Yeah.
Fast forward like 10 years after I'd, been in Kapuka, loving life, senior NCO life. I'm like, oh, this could be, because as the battery commander's assistant, I would be like the link, and I'll be speaking to all the captain FOs about, okay, here's your next set of orders. Here's where you're moving to. Here's the restart plan. This is what we need you to achieve. Like boom, 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 boom. So yeah, that's when that little antenna thing.
Yeah.
I was wondering how am I gonna explain that, but that's certainly what happened. That was my first sort of exposure as far as that goes.
So what's ASWOC?
So I forgot. So it's Army Senior NCO and Warrant Officer Commissioning Scheme. So it used to be called AWOX, Army Warrant Officer Commissioning Scheme, but then they were like, right, we're getting all these fucking crusty pricks that have been in 30 years. And they're like, oh fuck, there's no more fucking jobs for me, so I'll just fucking commission across to be a captain, and I'll fucking do an extra 5 years, and then I'll get out even fucking crustier.
Yeah.
More crusty, right?
That's so politically correct. Oh God.
Right? But then they're like, right, let's see if we can get some let's see if we can get some senior NCOs. They're younger, they're more motivated, they're going to stay longer, they're going to, they're going to bring a different capability. So I was like, that's fucking right up my alley. Very, very soon after that, I deployed on my first trip. So we went across to Optanager in Timor. So we went across with the 2RAR headquarters group, and we were So when the headquarters goes, they take their BC's group with them as well. So each of the FOs got rebranded into civil military affairs officers. My battery commander was the civil military liaison officer, and then I was his civil military affairs assistant. So same deal, just working in a big sort of battle group headquarters there, got to see all the different capabilities, bigger picture stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when I was like, I'm going to go to these fucking orders groups and I'm going to learn how to be an officer. I'm going to watch how they act. I'm going to watch how they learn. I can see the different types of questions they ask. And that's when it really, really started to germinate, for me as far as that goes. Got back from that in April 02. My BC at the time, Stu Kenny, great leader, awesome guy. He's like, yep, we're definitely going to support this. He wrote up all the paperwork, gave it to the CO, bang. And that's when I got accepted to commence my testing anyway. Yeah. So I got to do a whole year's worth of testing. Obviously, they look at all your different reports over the last couple of years, how had to go and do like a literate test, writing test, essay test, fucking blah, 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 blah. And then it sort of culminated in mid-2003 with Officer Selection Board. You would have did an Officer Selection Board, did you? Yeah, tell us about that.
ROSB. So, same thing. Like, so I was sort of there going, look, you know, I can't remember what I was at the time, 31. No, I was a bit older than that, probably like 33 or whatever it was. And I was like, you know, I can stay in this. And like, I relished being an airman. But like, so when the EOYs came out saying, look, you can apply and, you know, there's all these different, you can be OPSO or PCO or whatever, you can go for pilot and all this sort of stuff. Pilot, you need to have like good, because I got my glasses. So I knew, you know, that was not going to be. And you had to be at a certain age group as well. They won't take you if you're over 35. And I was like, I'm probably cutting it too fine to try and go for anything like that. So I was like, well, ops is great, you know, because you're a part of the day-to-day operations and forward planning and so on and so forth. So I put in, so they call it a paper board. So the first thing is you put in like an essay, how you meet all the selection criteria and so on and so forth, what you bring to it. So you put that in, all your supporting documents, they'll go through that. Then they'll go through 3 years of your PARs, so your performance reviews that you get each year from your superiors. So they go through and make sure that you have been, because there's a box there that says, could you see this guy, you know, commissioning later on? It's ticked, and make sure that you get all sevens and everything like that. So I had really good, obviously, PARs. Did that, came through and said, yep, you've been selected. You're going to fly down to Harmon, down in Canberra, and you'll be doing your day testing. And I was like, okay, cool. So you go down there, and it was the same thing. So you get, it's very time constraints. So you get in, you'll sit down, and they go like, we'll give you a topic. It's Plan Jericho, which is us trying to move to the 5th generation Air Force. You've got 20 minutes to write a essay. Go. And it's on this. So if I'm smashing this down, and then they go, all right, sweet. They come in, they go, you got 15 minutes now, and we'll give you a new topic. Like, how can you see the squadron that you're in making steps towards them, you know, taking out, you know, Plan Jericho's action on the commanders' intent and so on and so forth. So I'm like, sweet. So I write this fucking thing and then get up and you present it, right? And then at
sounds
the end,
very familiar. Yeah, it's really cool.
And at the end, when you sit down, they come in and say, hey, look, we're going to recommend you that you were put up. So they came and said that, and I said, I'd love to know why the essay and why you would have that. And they said, well, you'll be surprised how many people cannot do grammar and spelling and all that sort of stuff, and it's a lot of the younger generation. Yeah. Whereas I think it's like realistically, and I wanted to say that you could talk. You know,
especially being handwritten, because
and that's what
when we're doing now things on text messages or emails and the spell check, everything like that. Yep. You know, I've had to put Grammarly on a few of our team members' computers just to pick up on stuff like that, because it is kind of a dying skill, to be honest. Like, I'd hate to think, you know, the teenagers of
imagine the stuff they would read.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's like, and they say that like the younger generation's, you know, terrible at it, to be honest, where you find a lot of older guys and girls are really good at it, you know. The other thing is you have like as soon as you finish your oral presentation, they go, all right, put your palm cards down, sit down, and then they hammer into the board. So you'll have a psych, you'll have a board representative, and then you'll have an SME for the field that you're going into, and they just fire questions at you, and you do that for
what kind of questions?
They could
just
ask
random.
A lot of leadership questions, like you're in this situation, what would you do? You know, you're on an island. These are your 5 things. Which one would you take? And all this, just stuff like that to see that, because obviously your next step is commissioning and going down and being in that environment where it's completely different to being told what to do. Yep. A lot of it is problem solving, you know. So like I did pretty well at it. Like I'm usually pretty good at like thinking on my feet. In scenarios like that. So I found, like, I actually enjoy that process, but it's lengthy, hey, Robbie.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
Yeah, there's a whole year of testing, and every session is cutthroat. If you don't get that through that gate, you're out. Boom, straight away.
And they just stop you.
I have to say that's very similar to Qantas when I was going through the Qantas application. So the first couple, there's like phone interview, then you get invited to a group interview. You got to sit in a table of 10 and do problem solving. Then you go in front of a panel. Then you go into a one-on-one, and they ask you again leadership questions. Then you got to do your medical. Then you got to do ground school. So that whole process took well over 6 months for me.
It's fucking, it is like, and that's probably something that I wasn't really prepped for. So when you first get in, so you're going for your day, and there's 5 other people with you. You go in, they sit 5 seats, and they got the 3 board representatives there, and they go, you'll love this, Robbie. They go, all right, everyone, I'm going to point to you, jump up, give us 2 minutes about your background, because we're all commissioning airmen, right? We're not direct entries. Obviously, they're going through DFR. So the first bloke, they go, you got 2 minutes. first bloke jumps up and he's like, oh, so, I was at school and, my dad was in the RAF and then I joined and I'm doing this. And anyway, so, mate, he didn't even get past the rank. He was still an AC. Oh. And they're like, 2 minutes is up, sit down. Sit down. And he's like, and he's like, adhere to timing. So I was like, shit, I'll make sure mine's in my... So I just got up, I was done like 30 seconds.
I heard you do your best work in 30 seconds.
I am.
Great.
Probably 10.
Perfect, mate. Perfect. Actually, I'll come back to my officer selection board. I just thought of something really, really important that happened as well. There'd been 5 other warrant officers of the highest caliber senior NCOs and warrant officers in the whole artillery corps that had commissioned over the last 18 months. And I looked up to these guys. These guys were like senior bombardiers when I first joined the corps. Like they were about like 6, 7, 8 years ahead of me easily. And they were the fucking best of the best. And all these 5 guys got through. No, none of them had tried to do it as a senior NCO. They'd all got promoted to warrant officer first. Yep. So they'd done their sub 1 for warrant officer, done all their their subject courses from a technical perspective to get to that point. So they were far more qualified, far more capable than me. Because I was going through my testing and I hadn't been accepted yet, I went down and did my sub 4 for warrant officer. So I did my first technical trade course as a warrant officer because I thought, well, if I'm not going to get selected, I'm just going to be a warrant officer. Like this, I've still got good things to do, sort of down the track there. And I remember the sergeant major in charge of gunnery on that course there, and he wasn't one of the ones who commissioned across, but four of his mates did, and they were always the fucking the peak body of fucking prima donna corporals, prima donna sergeants, and the best warrant officers in the corps. So this guy was down there at the School of Artillery, and he's always a grumpy sergeant major. Sorry, you edited that.
Robbie.
He was always a really really grumpy bastard, but. But he's like pulled me aside. He goes, Sergeant Turner, I need to see you in my office now. I was like, fuck, what? Like, I don't remember doing anything wrong. Like, he was really, really angry, like overly angry. Yeah. Uh-oh. So, sure enough, fucking marching across the bloody thing there. When I went up to the, actually I had to go and meet him in the sergeant's mess, and he sat me down at the back of the sergeant's mess. He's like, so righto, Robin. This is what he he goes, Robin, I hear you're 3/4 of the way through your officer training. He goes, why the fuck are you going to be an officer for? We need you to be a warrant officer. Like mate, fucking, this is not fucking happening. Yeah. I'm telling you now, mate, fucking pull out of it. I don't want you to fucking go and do this. And I said to him, so I'm sorry, sir, we're like fucking way down the track. I'll go my officer selection board, in another few weeks' time. Yeah. I said, I'm just going to go down there and have a crack. I'm probably not going to get through and everything's going to be fine. He goes, well, why should I even keep you on this course? If you're just going to like jump ship and go and be an officer, like you don't even deserve to do the rest of this course. Why don't you just fuck off now, sort of thing? Wow. And I'm like, no. Me getting through is probably pretty, thin chance of that happening. So I'll let you know at the end. At least then if I don't get through, then at least now you've got another qualified, because there's probably 8 or 9 of us senior NCOs on this warrant officer course. I only did 1 a year. So anyway, that's it was an interesting conversation. I'll talk about that during another session. But yeah, fast forward to my officer selection board. As opposed to young airmen, we were all senior NCOs and warrant officers there. So across Army. There's probably 30 people on my officer selection board. There's another young, so I did this is at Randwick. I did day 1, and another senior NCO mate of mine who was posted to another artillery unit. He was doing day 2, and he was 4 or 5 years ahead of me. Way better, way more capable, just as likeable, really good on the sporting field, excellent senior NCO. Jace Pierce, his name is, and I'm like, fuck, he's definitely going to get in, and I'm fucked here. Like, if these other 5 got through, and now I'm here with Jace Pierce, there's no fucking way I'm going to get through. Yeah. Anyway, rocked up the officer selection board, same sort of thing, individual interviews, group interviews, boom, 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 boom. And I guess those 2 questions they asked me during the final interview there, they're like, right, so if you don't get through this, what are you going to do? I guess they were looking for me going, I'm going to get out. No, this is, if I don't get through, see you later, fuck you. I'm like, you know what, if I don't get through, like I'll just continue on and I'll be a warrant officer and I'm happy at work and I want to contribute to, to the military and I'll go back and keep doing my thing and like I'll be happy like if I don't get through. So I guess that went down reasonably well. And then the last thing they said, look, give us 3 words that describe you and why you're here right now. Just off the cuff, right? And I'm like, I'm fit, I'm motivated, and I'm balanced. And I had to sort of explain those things as well. Obviously, I had a bit of a life outside of military, even though one wouldn't disagree, Tam, on what you sort of said before. I was literally walking, talking military. But But anyway, yeah, they sort of got through, and then they had the sort of final decision there. So Sergeant Turner, I'm just really really pleased to know you impressed everyone here. Full colonel, half colonel, and major that were on the board there. One of them was a psych. They're like, congratulations, you've now been accepted.
Wow. So did the other guy get through?
And the other guy didn't get through.
Oh,
because he's like ringing me, and I'm like, man, and then you do this. So I gave him a quick heads up of all the things you're going to do, and I'm like, mate, you're going to smash it. And then they saw something in him that they didn't fucking get through, and he left the military soon after. Like he didn't get through.
Well, it might have been that question.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Because I think that's the standard one they ask. Because I got that same one. What would you do if you don't get through? I go, I'll just be sitting here next year. I'll apply again. So
see you next year.
Yeah. And I had this guy, and he's like, that's a fucking good answer.
So I was actually staying at Richard and Natasha's place.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they were living in Manly, of course, back in the day. So I went back to see them. I'm like, how'd you go? I'm like, I'm in. And they were just fucking so happy for me, like so happy. So it was very, very surreal. I didn't have any idea what it was going to mean as far as that goes. And certainly during the next episode, I'll tell you all about my first couple of years as a captain and sort of how it all transitioned. But yeah, I had to go back and sort of inform my chain of command, and they were ecstatic for me. They were really, really happy. And
except that guy,
he wasn't. He was supposed to do a different unit. Remember?
Oh, right.
Yeah. So my BC at the moment, Charles, at the time, Charles Weller, another really great friend of mine, been an outstanding mentor. He introduced me to leadership. He actually gave me a signed book of the leadership book by Rudy Giuliani. The guy with the shit bloody ribbon down the side. Yeah. Like, he's turned into a guy who I don't admire, but when he was the mayor of New York during 9/11, which interesting, we watched a little session about that last night actually, as we record this in a few days before 9/11 now, the 20th anniversary. Yeah, he gave me a signed book, it's called Leadership, by him. So, first things first, always think win-win, et cetera, et cetera. So that was really cool. And then they organised a commissioning ceremony for me. So it wasn't done, and, it was done in the unit. So we moved out of our own mess by then. Sort of a couple of years later, they built the Vasey mess, where there's like a bit of a combined mess, and they had the three different wings, the OR wing, the senior NCO wing, and the officers wing. So yeah, we did a full commissioning ceremony there, and literally, got me to stand up out the front. The CO was like, well done, Sergeant Turner, and got through there, and this guy's an inspiration for everyone, blah 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 blah. And then someone come forward and basically ripped off my senior NCO rank, tossed that over their shoulder, put a captain rank on, everyone fucking clapped, right turn, bang.
Like literally ripped it off.
Yeah, like just took it off, and you take down the Velcro and then take it off, and then put another one on, and then close the Velcro again. Right. So that was
dramatic.
That was pretty cool.
Feels good.
And then bloody right turn, bang, and then
that was it.
See you later, sergeants. And I literally walked out of one mess into the other. Yeah. Went there and had a bloody beer with all the other captains. So it was in the first few days of that, it was really, really weird. Like I walked past the warrant officers and still call them sir. And he goes, "No, sir, I call you sir now." So it was weird. It was weird. It was very, very weird to get used to straight away.
Yeah.
It's
Do you not call them sir anymore?
No. That's
if
fucking.
You're above them.
He's commissioned.
That's right.
But
saluting the commission.
I went straight to captain.
So people under you don't call sir.
You definitely don't call anyone under you sir. No.
Right. No, I just thought it's polite.
You sir.
That might change. Yeah.
Hello sir.
What about Dane? Tell us. So hopefully you guys found that a little bit entertaining. Dane, tell us about your first few days as a commissioned.
So mine was similar. Like that. So. You have the lunchroom, and like Robbie said, you do your sort of like you get your rank. It was just at the squadron. So the CO's down there with the XO and the Warrant Officer of Engineering. So our WOE, right? So we call them. And someone comes out and goes, "Dane, they want you in the lunchroom." So I go in there, the whole squadron's sitting in there. I'm like, fuck. And I'm like, what does it say? And he goes, "Come in, come on." And I walk up, and they present me with a presento, we call it, which is my big thing with the C-17 and stuff. But the lads the social club, which I was in, Robbie, I like that, and beers, half price. The boys had gone and put a different plaque on it. So a plaque on top of the plaque, but underneath the glass. Right. And the plaque, they're stitching me up. So they've, instead of writing 36 squadron, they've written 35. And then they've written, instead of writing my rank, they wrote ACW, which is a woman's rank. Oh. Right? ACW Roach. And anyway, but the CO is presenting it. So they get this, and the CO's looking at it. He's looking at it, and he's like, looks up, and he goes, "All right," and he does a little presenter, and he's going off to OTS on Monday, and if I can driving down, blah blah blah. he was like, without further ado, and he like rips off my rank slide, throws on my flying officer one, so you skip pilot officer, flips on that, rose up, and he goes, and you're an officer of that right there. And he goes, and I want to see whoever's done this fucking plaque, because it is completely incorrect. So my mates are getting in trouble.
Already
in trouble, and they're like, sir, underneath it's a good, and he pulls it off, and obviously it's got everything correct underneath it. And he's like, all right, I'll get it. Like, but he wasn't happy at the time. But it was weird too, because then it was just what you said, like walked out of that straight up, down to the officers' mess as well. So I went down there because I had a lot of the JOs who are in the engineering realm, because you work with them. Like, we'll go down and have a beer, mate, before you go off.
Yeah, it's great.
Which was a bit surreal, right? Because I like going down having beers with people. I've been like, yes, sir, yep, do that.
It was very surreal.
Yeah, sitting there having a beer with them, and they're talking about all this stuff that I just had no exposure to at my realm, because I was a doer, where they're talking about like different capabilities, and we're doing this, and I was just like, fuck, this is cool.
Yes, one thing I'm really glad, and it would have been a deterrent for me, is have to go down to do our OTS equivalent, and that would have been 18 months at Duntroon. I've been like, oh, fuck that. And then having to do 4 or 5 years as a lieutenant as well. So to go straight from, because I've done 12 years in the army so far. I don't want to fucking go back to being a bloody brand new lieutenant again. I do understand now that a lot of people that do ASWOCs are not forced to go through Duntroon, but they certainly don't go straight to captain.
Yep.
So I went straight
I think it's
into
amended now, because beforehand, if you go to officer training school with the RAF, if you're a warrant officer or a flight sergeant, they only come down and do the last 4 weeks, which is just base leadership. They don't do the green phase where you have to go outfield and do all that sort of stuff. But if you're sergeant and below, you have to go do the whole kit and caboodle, right? So, and I was the same, Robbie. I was like, oh my God, I do not want to do that. But I was thinking like, but I've done it before. Maybe it'd be good. But when you get down there, like straight up, you get down there and it's just people who have never, and they're bitching about this and they're bitching about that. And you're just like, mate, just grit your teeth and just get through it, because you're not here to, it's not a retreat, but everything has an end.
Not the McCure yet.
Yeah, it's not yet, but it will be. You like the Shangri-La, you'll be there. But I was just like, just remember, everything has an end. So when you're there with your sheets on your shoulders and you're getting yelled at, it will end eventually.
Yeah.
So just hang in there, because it does. And then it's fucking awesome. So I used to try and like impart, once you get out to the real Air Force, it's a different world, Like you're going to be out there and you'll thoroughly enjoy it. Don't let this be, which is the advice I got in that airport that time.
Yeah.
This is just the start, Don't let it be the catalyst for everything else after that.
Let me finish off with one of my more enjoyable experiences with a bit of tongue-in-cheek humour there, is that soon after, about a week later, I deployed to Solomon Islands straight away. So I'll get into that during one of our next episodes. But I did get to see Warrant Officer Johnson, who called me into his office that day and called me Robin. Just before I left, he must have been visiting up to Townsville or whatever. And I went up to him as Captain Turner. He goes, "Hello, sir." I said, "Michael, how are you?" And it was actually really, really cool that he had a bit of a chuckle about it as well. He's like, good on you, mate. So all that sort of stuff. So it's it was a great little journey. So to sort of have that little fork in the road there, where I was going to become a PDI, to go all the way through to Kapuka, go to senior NCO, deploy, come back, get commissioned, and boom, now a hero off. And I guess it was one of the great things, is my whole career was just about to start again. And I had like little did I know, I had another like 11 and a half, 12 years to go. So I can't wait to share that with you guys during the next sessions.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks, Tammy. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, cool. Good on you, Dane. All right. See you later, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.